This is Mr. Eugene, and today we're examining a shift in male behavior so significant, so widespread, so misunderstood that most people can't even have an honest conversation about it without being called weak, afraid, or inadequate. Men aren't approaching women anymore. Not like they used to. Not in the numbers they used to. Not with the frequency or confidence they once had. And the standard response from women, from media, from society is mockery and shaming. Men have lost confidence. Men are too afraid of rejection. Men aren't real men anymore. This generation of men is weak. But that analysis is completely wrong. Men didn't suddenly lose confidence. Men didn't become weak. Men didn't stop wanting relationships or female companionship. What happened is far more rational, far more calculated, far more strategic than anyone acknowledging. Men changed their behavior because the environment changed. And when the risk-reward calculation fundamentally shifts, intelligent people adjust their strategy accordingly. This isn't about fear. This is about assessment. This isn't about weakness. This is about adaptation. This isn't about men failing at dating. This is about men recognizing that the game changed and responding intelligently to new rules. Today, we're examining the 11 specific reasons men stopped approaching. Not emotional reasons or psychological failures, but rational responses to environmental changes. The risk calculation that men are now making before approaching. Why the modern dating environment punishes approach attempts in ways that didn't exist before. How technology fundamentally altered the dynamics. And most critically, what intelligent men are doing instead of complaining about the shift. This is not about blaming women. This is not about claiming victimhood. This is about understanding systemic changes in dating dynamics so you can navigate them strategically rather than being destroyed by them emotionally. Stay with me. This explains behavior changes that confuse everyone who isn't paying attention. Reason 1, public rejection replaced private rejection. Let me start with the most fundamental shift that changed everything about approach dynamics. How rejection used to work traditionally, rejection was private. Man approaches woman in person. She's not interested. She politely declines. The interaction ends. No witnesses, no documentation, no lasting consequences beyond that moment. The rejection stayed between the two people involved. His ego took a hit. He moved on. She forgot about it within hours. That was the entire scope of consequences. Hashtag how rejection works. Now rejection can become public. Instantly, man approaches woman. She's not interested. She posts about it on social media. This creepy guy approached me at the gym, screenshots messages and shares with friends, records the interaction on phone, tells the story framing him negatively to anyone who will listen, shares in group chats where dozens of people see what was once a private moment between two people is now potentially visible to hundreds or thousands. Why this changes male behavior? Men aren't just risking rejection anymore. They're risking social reputation damage. Your approach attempt becomes a funny story she shares with her friends. You become that creepy guy in her social circle. Digital documentation, screenshots, recordings, posts, evidence of your approach exists permanently and can be shared infinitely. Narrative control loss. She frames the interaction however she wants. You approached respectfully? Doesn't matter. She can describe it as creepy, aggressive, or threatening, and you have no ability to provide your perspective. Extended consequences. What happens in that 30-second interaction can affect your social standing, your reputation, potentially even your professional life if it spreads far enough. This is not theoretical. This happens constantly. Men approach respectfully, get rejected, and later discover she posted about them online, framing them negatively to an audience of hundreds. When private rejection becomes public humiliation, the calculus changes entirely. Reason 2. The same behavior gets interpreted differently based on attraction. This is perhaps the most frustrating reality for men who try to approach. The inconsistency problem. The exact same approach behavior produces completely different responses based on a variable men cannot control, her attraction to him. Scenario 1. She finds him attractive. His approach is confident. His persistence is romantic. His eye contact is intense and attractive. His conversation is charming. His touch is flirtatious. Scenario 2. She doesn't find him attractive. His approach is creepy. His persistence is aggressive and can't take a hint. His eye contact is staring and uncomfortable. His conversation is trying too hard. His touch is inappropriate and unwanted. Same behavior. Opposite interpretation. Entirely dependent on her subjective attraction. Why this is unworkable: men cannot know in advance whether their approach will be interpreted positively or negatively because attraction is subjective and invisible. She doesn't wear a sign saying, "I'm attracted to you," or "I'm not attracted to you." He has to guess based on limited information. Initial signals are unreliable: eye contact, smiling, being friendly. None of these guarantee attraction. She might just be polite. Or she might be interested. No way to know until after you've already committed to approaching. The stakes are asymmetric. If he guesses right, she's attracted, positive outcome. If he guesses wrong, she's not attracted. His behavior is retroactively labeled as inappropriate. No objective standard exists. There's no universal guideline for this is appropriate approach behavior. The appropriateness is determined entirely by whether she's attracted, which he cannot know in advance. This creates an impossible situation. Men must approach to determine interest. But approaching when she's not interested is increasingly labeled as problematic. So men must take the risk before knowing whether the risk is acceptable. Many men have decided this inconsistency makes approach attempts irrational. When the exact same behavior is either appreciated or condemned entirely based on factors outside your control, the logical response is to not engage. Reason 3. Social consequences extend beyond the interaction. The third reason builds on the first two, the extended social network effect. In the past, approaching a woman had localized consequences. She's not interested. You move on. Maybe you see her occasionally at the same venue. But her rejection doesn't spread beyond the immediate context. Now, social networks extend consequences indefinitely. She tells her friends. Your attempt becomes a story shared among her friend group. You're now that guy to 10 to 15 people you've never met. Her friends tell their friends. The story spreads. Now 50 plus people know a version, likely exaggerated, of your approach attempt. Social media amplification. If she posts about it, hundreds or thousands see it. Your face might be shared. Your name might be mentioned. Professional connections. If you're in the same professional circle, the story reaches colleagues. Your reputation is affected. Venue consequences. If you approached at a gym, bar, coffee shop you frequent, she can tell staff, create discomfort, potentially get you asked not to return. Some examples. Man approaches woman at gym. She wasn't interested. Told gym staff he was harassing her. He got his membership revoked. His crime, approaching and asking if she wanted to get coffee sometime. Man approaches woman at networking event. She rejected him. Posted on LinkedIn about men who use professional events to hit on women. His professional reputation damaged in his industry. Man approaches woman at coffee shop. She took a photo of him without his knowledge and posted it on Twitter with mocking commentary about guys who think they have a chance. Post went viral. He was identified and harassed online. These are not extreme cases. This happens regularly. The risk is no longer just she says no. The risk is she says no, and then there are extended social consequences I cannot predict or control. Reason 4. Approach fatigue from repeated rejection. The fourth reason is psychological rather than social. The cumulative effect. 1 rejection is manageable. 5 rejections test your confidence. 20 rejections start to wear you down. 50 rejections create genuine psychological impact. Men who approach regularly experience emotional exhaustion. Each rejection requires emotional recovery. After enough rejections in sequence, the recovery time gets longer and the willingness to try again diminishes. Pattern recognition. After being rejected 30 times using the same approach method, your brain recognizes this strategy doesn't work and you stop using it. Learned helplessness. When effort consistently produces negative outcomes, people learn to stop trying. This is basic psychology. Behavior that doesn't produce positive reinforcement gets extinguished. Identity damage. Enough rejection begins affecting self-perception. Maybe I'm not attractive enough. Maybe I'm not interesting enough. Maybe approaching just doesn't work for me. The numbers game doesn't work for most men. Pickup culture told men it's a numbers game. Approach 100 women, maybe 10% will be interested, maybe 1 will become something. The reality, most men don't have the emotional resilience to handle 90% rejection rates repeatedly, and the 10% success rate assumes you're approaching effectively, which most men aren't because effective approach requires social calibration most men don't have. So men do the math. I need to approach 20 women to potentially get 1 positive response. Each approach risks social consequences. Each rejection damages my confidence. The 1 potential positive outcome is uncertain and may not lead anywhere. This is a terrible investment of emotional energy and social risk. Many men conclude, the juice isn't worth the squeeze. I'll allocate my energy elsewhere. Reason 5. Dating apps created the illusion they solved the problem. The fifth reason is technological. The promised dating apps were supposed to solve the approach problem. No more public rejection, no more reading signals, no more social risk. Just create a profile, swipe, match with women who are interested, message those matches. The promise was efficiency, filter for mutual interest first, then interact only with women who've already indicated attraction. This seemed like a massive improvement over random approaching. The reality for most men, dating apps don't work. The statistics are brutal. Top 10% of men get 60% plus of female attention. Average men get 1 to 2% match rates. Matches rarely lead to conversations. Conversations rarely lead to dates. Dates rarely lead to relationships most men experience. Swiping hundreds of profiles with minimal matches. Matches that never respond. Conversations that die immediately. Extreme competition for average women. Constant comparison to men who are taller, richer, more attractive. Spending money on apps with minimal results, the abandonment effect. But here's what apps actually created. Men stopped approaching in person because they believed apps were the solution. Then they discovered apps don't work for them. But now they're out of practice approaching in person, and the environment has become more hostile to approach. So they're stuck. Apps don't work. In-person approach feels too risky. They've lost the social skills and confidence to approach effectively even if they wanted to. Result, many men just stop trying entirely. Not because they don't want relationships, but because both available pathways, apps and in-person, seem unworkable. Reason 6. Social media created unrealistic perceived options. The sixth reason fundamentally altered female perception. The attention explosion before social media, a woman's sense of her options was limited by men she encountered in daily life, men in her social circle, men who approached her in person. This created realistic perception of available options. After social media, every woman, even average women, receives constant attention from dozens or hundreds of men through Instagram DMs, Facebook messages, dating app matches, comments on posts, likes and reactions. This creates perception of unlimited options. Even if 95% of this attention is from men she'd never actually date, the sheer volume creates psychological effect. How this changes in-person dynamics. When a man approaches in person, he's competing against her perception of having hundreds of options, even if those options are largely illusory, she thinks. Why would I be interested in this random guy approaching me when I have all these other options? Even if those other options are mostly low-quality attention from men she'll never meet, or who won't actually commit to her. The abundance mindset created by social media makes average men invisible. She's not comparing you to realistic alternatives. She's comparing you to the idealized composite of the best traits from the hundreds of men giving her attention online. This makes successful approach nearly impossible for average men. Not because of anything wrong with them, but because they're competing against an inflated perception of options that social media created. Reason 7. Mixed messages about what's appropriate. The seventh reason creates paralyzing uncertainty. The contradictory messaging women say they want to be approached. Where are all the confident men? Why don't men make the first move anymore? I wish men would just come talk to me. But also, men need to respect women's space. Women don't owe you their attention. Women at the gym, store, coffee shop aren't there to be hit on. Reading the room means knowing when she's not interested. But also, my boyfriend approached me at the gym. We met when he randomly started a conversation at the bookstore. He was persistent and it was romantic. These messages are completely contradictory, and men receive all of them simultaneously. The paralysis men think, should I approach or not? Some women say they want it, some women say it's inappropriate. The same approach is romantic if she's attracted, creepy if she's not, but I can't know which it is until after I've already approached. And if I guess wrong, there could be social consequences. This creates analysis paralysis. The safest option becomes don't approach. Can't be labeled inappropriate if you never try. No clear standard. There is no universal standard for appropriate approach. Different women want different things in different contexts. What one woman welcomes, another finds intrusive. Without clear guidelines, many men default to, I'll just not approach at all rather than risk getting it wrong. Reason 8, professional and reputational risks increased. The eighth reason affects men in professional contexts. The workplace became off limits. Historically, workplaces were common places to meet partners. People worked together, developed attraction, pursued relationships. Now, workplace romance is increasingly discouraged or prohibited. Formal policies against dating coworkers. HR concerns about harassment, fear that rejected approaches lead to hostile work environment claims, professional reputation risk if relationship goes badly. Many men have decided, I will not approach anyone I work with under any circumstances because the professional risk is too high. Adjacent professional spaces also became risky. This extends beyond direct coworkers, networking events. Don't use professional events to hit on women. Conferences, women are there to work, not be approached. Industry social events, respect professional boundaries. The entire professional sphere, which used to be a major venue for meeting partners, has become off limits to approach. Reputational risk extended beyond just workplace. In any semi-public professional context, approaching a woman creates risk. If she's offended and has connections in your industry, your reputation can be damaged. If the interaction goes poorly and she shares it, you can be labeled as that guy who doesn't respect professional boundaries. In smaller professional communities, one bad approach attempt can follow you for years. Many men in professional careers have decided, the potential career damage is not worth the potential romantic outcome. I'll keep professional spaces entirely platonic. Reason 9, mismatch between expectations and reality. The 9th reason is the growing gap between what women expect and what average men can provide. Expectation inflation, social media, dating apps, and popular culture have inflated expectations. Women now expect men to be tall, 6 feet plus, even though only 14% of men are, high earning 6 figures, even though median income is far below that, fit, six-pack abs, even though small percentage of men maintain this, confident but not arrogant, successful but with work-life balance, emotionally available but still masculine, exciting but also stable. These expectations describe a man who essentially doesn't exist, or exists in such small numbers that average men cannot compete. The reality gap average men recognize. I'm 5 feet 10 inches, make $60,000, in decent shape but not model level, have normal career and lifestyle. By the standards women now seem to have, I'm invisible. Why waste energy approaching when I don't meet the baseline expectations? This isn't defeatism, it's rational assessment. If women's expectations have inflated beyond what you can realistically provide, continuing to approach is just setting yourself up for repeated rejection. The paradox, meanwhile, many women wonder, where are all the good men? Not recognizing that their definition of good men excludes 85% of the male population based on height alone before even considering other criteria. Men see this mismatch, and many decide, I'll opt out of this game rather than continuously fail to meet impossible standards. Reason 10. Cultural narratives discourage male initiative. The 10th reason is the broader cultural messaging, the shift in cultural narrative, traditional narrative. Men pursue, women choose, this is natural and appropriate. Modern narrative, women are independent and don't need men. Male pursuit is often unwanted attention. Women will approach if they're interested. Men should wait to be chosen rather than actively pursuing. The contradiction, but women still largely don't approach. Despite cultural messaging about equality and independence, women still expect men to initiate overwhelmingly, but men have absorbed the message, my pursuit might be unwanted. I should wait for clear signals. I shouldn't assume my attention is wanted. This creates a standoff. Men are told not to pursue. Women don't pursue. Nobody pursues. Fewer relationships form. The confusion men receive contradictory messages. Be confident and pursue. But also, respect that she might not want your attention. Make the first move, but also, don't assume she's interested just because she's being polite. Take initiative. But also, women don't owe you anything for your initiative. Many men respond. The cultural message is confusing and contradictory. The safest response is to do nothing until I receive absolutely clear signals that approach would be welcome, which rarely happens. Reason 11. The risk-reward calculation fundamentally shifted. The final reason synthesizes all the previous ones. The old calculation risk, private rejection. Temporary ego hit. Reward, potential relationship. Sexual access, companionship, partnership, assessment, reward significantly outweighed risk. Approach made rational sense. The new calculation risk, public rejection and potential humiliation, social media documentation, reputation damage in social circles, professional consequences in some contexts, being labeled inappropriate, creepy, or threatening, approach interpreted negatively if she's not attracted. Extended social consequences beyond immediate interaction reward, low probability of success, high competition, inflated expectations. Even if successful initially, modern relationships are unstable, divorce risks and consequences. Relationship often provides less than it historically did. Women with better options or perception of better options are harder to keep assessment. For many men, risk now exceeds reward. Approach no longer makes rational sense. The strategic withdrawal, this is not weakness. This is strategy. When the risk-reward calculation fundamentally shifts against an activity, intelligent people stop engaging in that activity. Men aren't approaching less because they're afraid or weak. They're approaching less because they've done the math and concluded, this is a bad investment of my energy, risk, and emotional capacity. What intelligent men do instead? Now let me address what men should actually do given these realities. Because understanding the problem without providing solutions is useless. Strategy 1. Be highly selective about where and when you approach. Don't approach everywhere hoping for success. Approach strategically in contexts where social consequences are minimal, settings where rejection won't affect your social standing or professional reputation. Indicators of interest exist. She's made eye contact multiple times. She's positioned herself near you. She's given actual signals beyond just existing in the same space. The context is appropriate, social events specifically designed for meeting people, venues where interaction is expected and normal. Quality over quantity. One well-calibrated approach in the right context is worth more than 20 random approaches in hostile environments. Strategy 2. Build social circles that create organic opportunities instead of random approaching. Invest in social communities, join groups, clubs, activities where you regularly see the same people. Attraction and relationships develop organically through repeated positive interactions. Get introductions. Friends who know both you and potential matches can facilitate introductions that bypass the cold approach problem entirely. Create situations where women approach you, when you're the person hosting, organizing, or leading activities. Women come into your environment on your terms. This eliminates most approach risks because interest develops naturally rather than through risky cold approach. Strategy 3. Develop yourself to the point where you're chosen rather than pursuing constantly. Build yourself into someone women pursue. Physical fitness and appearance, financial success and stability, social status and connections, interesting lifestyle and experiences, confidence from genuine achievement. When you're high value, women make it obvious they're interested. You don't have to guess. You don't have to risk an appropriate approach. They give clear signals or approach you directly. This is the long game strategy. Become the man women compete for rather than competing for women. Strategy 4. Use technology. Intelligently dating apps don't work for most men, but if you're going to use them, invest in professional photos, write a profile that's specific and demonstrates value, understand that apps are a numbers game with low conversion, don't invest emotional energy in matches, most go nowhere, treat them as one option among many, not your primary strategy. Use them without depending on them. Check apps once daily at most. Don't let the rejection rate affect your confidence. Recognize they're a tool with limited effectiveness for most men. Strategy 5. Recognize when to engage and when to walk away. Not every woman is worth the risk of approach. Develop the ability to assess. Is she giving actual signals? Or are you just attracted and hoping? Is the context appropriate, or would approaching create unnecessary risk? Is she likely to be receptive? Or is she clearly occupied, disinterested, or in a context where she doesn't want to be approached? At a certain point in life, you stop chasing every opportunity and start choosing where your effort actually matters. This is maturity. This is wisdom. This is what separates men who waste energy from men who invest it strategically. Final thoughts. Men didn't disappear. They adapted. Here's what people need to understand about men not approaching. This is not a failure of modern men. This is an adaptation to changed circumstances. The environment changed. Private rejection became public. Social media amplified consequences. Professional risks increased. Cultural messaging became contradictory. Female expectations inflated beyond reality. Technology promised solutions but failed most men. The risk-reward calculation fundamentally shifted. Smart men recognized these changes and adjusted their behavior accordingly. Some women complain, where have all the good men gone? Why won't men approach anymore? The answer is simple. The good men are still here. They just stopped playing a game where the rules changed to make them lose. They didn't become weak. They became strategic. They're not approaching random women in random contexts hoping for success. They're building themselves into high-value men women pursue, creating social environments where organic attraction develops, being highly selective about where and when they engage, protecting their reputation and emotional energy, waiting for clear signals rather than risking rejection, opting out of situations where risks exceed rewards the men who understand that the environment changed and adapt their strategy accordingly, are the men who still succeed. The men who keep approaching the old way in the new environment, they're the ones who get destroyed. The truth is simple. Men didn't suddenly become weak. They adjusted their behavior based on what they observed, and the ones who understand how the game changed are the ones who still win. Drop a comment about your experience. Have you stopped approaching? What made you change your behavior? What strategies work for you now? Subscribe, because this channel will continue providing honest analysis of dating dynamics that explains behavior changes everyone notices, but nobody accurately diagnoses. Stay strategic, stay selective, and never mistake adaptation for weakness.